Hi, I'm Connor Petrey. I'm here with Cinefied.com. It's very nice to speak to you, Dean Norris. How are you?
Thank you, man. I'm great. Thank you very much.
So I just have to first off say, of course, Breaking Bad, but one big thing is my dad and I, we went and saw Death Wish in opening night, and it's one of those memories of me and my dad. So it's one of those things that I have to say how much I appreciate you and your role, and uh, I hope to see so much more from you. All right.
Thank you,
Uh,
man. Appreciate
so. So I really loved your character, Cliff, and your connection with your character's son. You actually have one of my favorite time jokes in the movie, which was a very sincere moment in the film that was derailed by you offering your son a weapon. But the timing was so the timing was so perfect. Is in your mind, is there a difference when you prepare for a more comedic role such as this and a more dramatic role?
a little bit. I think you have to delve into different parts of yourself for the more intense roles. But this was just becoming a dad and becoming this ham-fisted, and he doesn't have any filter. I love that. I added that gun element, by the way, to make
Did
it
you?
look that way. Yeah. I mean, they talked about it that he had it, but I love that. He had this very serious, and I said, okay. And instead of handing it to the beginning, I said, let's have this serious moment, and then, oh, and by the way,
I laughed. I'm being 100% serious. I laughed the hardest at that moment.
yeah,
I was like, "That's a
yeah.
good moment." So I beyond that moment, for instance, was there any other kind of like improvisation, or was it mainly off from the page?
Well, it certainly started from the page, but we all off camera would look. I lived in a house with me, Lisa Kudrow, and Parker Posey, and we had just long running, just improvise. We would have fun off set, and we would eat together, and we'd have movie night together and game night, and it was just fun hanging out with smart, cool, funny people, and we had a lot of improvisation. Off camera, and then when it came on camera, we would just we just felt comfortable in our characters. So definitely Lisa and I did our fair share of improvising, and some of it made the movie, some it didn't. But yeah, we just played the scene like I just felt like I was married to her for 20 years. Yeah, I did, and
Uh, it,
it was
it,
so easy to just go off and explore things, and it felt very again safe with her, and we felt comfortable because we felt comfortable off camera, so it just made it fun to do it on camera.
yeah, definitely felt yeah, your relationship with Lisa on screen. It felt very genuine, so I can totally see that. I am curious with the horror comedy genre, just out of it can be like a really cool open sandbox for a lot of scenarios. And I was just curious, like on a personal level, like what would you say is like a personal favorite horror comedy?
I don't know about a horror comedy. I don't think I haven't seen. I mean, I've seen the scary movie stuff, which is a different kind of
Yeah.
comedy. I don't recall the horror comedy genre. I know Shining is one of my scariest movies I've ever seen, and I've seen it many times. It still scares me. And of course, I have a bunch of comedy movies I love, but I thought that was kind of unique about that. I know there've been a few out there. I don't think I've seen them though. But I
Okay.
thought for me, the combination was unique when I read it, and I was like, "Wow, this is great!" And hope they can pull it off. And I think they did.
Yeah, no, and I strongly believe they did because it's the way that all the jokes are timed and you have your sincere moments like that. And but yeah, there's fantastic comedy horrors out there. You got like Shaun of the Dead and stuff
Oh
like
yeah, well,
that.
I've seen
And
Shaun of the Dead. I,
uh,
I like that. Yeah, but again, I think
okay,
it's a little different than what we were. It's a little. It still seems a little different than this, doesn't it? But I love Shaun of
it
the Dead.
does. It does. Yeah, it's more like the comedy's very different, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely a film that people will appreciate the jokes the more and more they rewatch.
right,
So
right.
I really appreciate your time, Dean, and thank you for talking to me about the film.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Bye.
It's very nice to get a chance to talk to you too about the film.
Yeah,
How are you
likewise.
guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. First off, Nick, I just have to straight out say I'm a huge fan, my girlfriend and I, of Dear Evan Hansen,
Oh,
and we've
thank you.
watched it way too many times. So I just had to kind of come out and say that. So it's very cool to get to talk to you. Um, both of you have fantastic back and forth chemistry on screen. What was it the dialogue that like led you to this project, or what exactly led you here?
Everything about the script when I first read it, I was like my jaw was hanging down and I was laughing and had no idea who any of the cast would be, and I spent so much time on that audition tape because I was like, I want this so desperately because the script that Kent Sublette wrote was just so funny, and it just reminded me of like Meet the Parents is one of my favorite movies, and to do like a modern demonic take on that was just you know fucking amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I could definitely pull in the Meet the Parents part of it. So, Meet the Parents horror. It's, I mean, what's a better pairing? uh, so, uh, so the character of Josh, he gets Ghostbuster level slimed at one point, and I'm just curious, did that take multiple takes? Like, because that seemed like you got totally soaked.
I mean, I did get totally soaked. It wasn't that many takes. It was probably like it was the end of the day, about 30 minutes, and just a couple times, and then just like as I'm covered in slime, just like over and over and over again, just different forms of reactions.
Oh, okay.
I know it like kind of takes the fun out of it, but it was really fun.
That scene in particular is one of the moments that I blurted out laughing. So it's just it was so sudden and out of nowhere, and yeah, and to think of Brian Cox's character doing that to you, it's just yeah, it was funny. The was there I should have said this as the second thing, but the was there any improv in on the set, or was it basically what was on the page is what translated to the screen?
There was a little bit of improv, but what Kent wrote was just so funny. And what he would do is, um, between takes, he would just write new lines on little post-it notes and bring them in. And everything he wrote was just absolutely fire. And um, yeah, it was just a very free and open set. And the director let us like mess around. And I think my favorite scenes were when all of us were together, because that's when it was just like the funniest random unscripted moments would occur.
That's awesome. Yeah. So if you were to put Rohan and Josh, if you were to find them in another horror movie scenario, like after this movie takes place, what would you see them come up against? Like in my mind, I could imagine like a honeymoon, for instance, where they go off into like an Evil Dead-esque cabin type scenario. Do you guys have any ideas?
That's
Rosemary's Baby.
That's
They
not
have
bad.
a kid, and the kid is, or I guess rather like Omen, like we're, you know,
Yeah.
we got a baby.
I mean, that's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. What about you, Nick? Any ideas?
Oh man.
Can you top it?
I don't know. I feel like Demon Baby is just like the winner here. I second that because I would love to watch us try and adopt a kid and have it turn out to be really unchill.
What if it's like a crossover? Like, what's that movie with the doll?
Chucky?
No,
Annabelle?
it's the new one, and
Oh,
it's
Megan?
Megan.
Oh yeah.
They basically get Megan.
Oh, now we're going full sci-fi.
They adopt Megan, yeah.
We
I
insist
mean,
that she's like half white, half Indian, perfectly blended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that I can totally see that. So I hope that comes to fruition and
Yeah.
we get to see that at some point. But thank you
We'll-
guys
we'll
so much.
pitch it. We'll pitch it.
Thank you so much for your time. First off, Craig, I just wanted to say how much I love and appreciate the Skeleton Twins. I was delighted to see that you were directing this, a very different tone, but a delightfully funny one. So I would like to talk about the title first. Was that a play on anything in particular? Because like when I heard The Parenting, I was like The Howling, and then it's, you know, a poltergeist film. Was that play on anything?
I think it's a nod to all, a few horror movies like the that I can't think of right now. But I mean,
That's all right.
Like the Conjuring, I would
Yeah.
say, or
Okay.
The Haunting.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense than The Howling. I don't know why that popped in my head. But I really love the way that the story is told, and it's a really great mix of like a satire of the genre while taking it also head on. And I couldn't stop smiling throughout. I just kept laughing at certain beats, and I love the pacing most of all. I was wondering what inspired you to make the parenting? Like, was there any influence when you were going out to write and direct this on two different standpoints?
For me, it's kind of loosely based or inspired by a trip that I took with my parents and in-laws with my husband when we first started dating, and we thought, what better thing to do than bring them all together for 3 days in a cold, snowy house. And it's there's stress involved, and I think that everybody has gone through in dealing with meeting your in-laws for the first time. And we kind of joke like the only thing that would make it tougher is if this house was haunted. That's kind of where the idea came from.
Okay.
I related to it because my in-laws and my parents are very, very different people. So their first few meetings too were just they were just trying to find some common ground, both wonderful couples, but very, very different. And so it's just like I could relate to everything in the parenting.
Okay. There's like this really surreal energy throughout the film, like the Meet the Parents style meets horror, and visually I loved the horror elements. Like the ghost designs really packed a punch for me. Like there was one jump scare in particular that actually got me to jump, and that's hard to do. I think because I was so in on the Meet the Parents comedy side, and then when the horror jumped in, I was like, ah. So I am curious, like when it comes to writing, for instance, or directing, like how do you properly like blend it so well like you did in this film? Like, is there like is it like a mental like process to like make sure you're not overdoing it on the horror versus the comedy? Because it's like so well blended here. Sorry if that's a weird question.
No, I mean, writing it was a challenge. You just you start with the basic story of like two guys, their parents, and you've kind of got to do all those beats. And then there's, keeping this kind of heightening the horror part of it, but you've got to still pay attention to like the people. So I think in a way it kind of forced me to like make a balance because you didn't want to lose sight of hopefully anybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when you're directing it, I knew going in that it's sort of, I think it's DNA, it's a comedy, right? But it's a comedy kind of trapped in a horror movie. So I knew that the horror elements needed to be legitimately scary for it all to work. These characters need to really be freaked out. And so then you just hire these great actors that just play it straight, basically, play the comedy straight, and you just get naturally funny actors to do that, and then they're legitimately playing the horror straight too.
And I think that's what helps the film like go down so well, because as I've been saying throughout the past few interviews, I do see that this film on repeated viewings, I think the comedy is just going to keep hitting harder and harder, and I think that it's going to be a great rewatch a film. So I am curious, as my last question, there's a quote unquote vicious dog attack at one moment in the film, and I was curious, like, how was that effect done? Like, was it puppetry, or because it kind of brought like a nostalgic element to it?
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that. Yes, that was a puppet, a full-on practical rubber dog. And like I'm a big Gremlins fan. I think
Yeah.
there's something about tactile, practical visual effects that, especially in something horror and visceral, that are just a little more effective. I mean, there's CGI in the movie as well, but my heart is with the killer dog puppet.
Yeah, that's yeah. There's two moments that had me laughing the most, and one of them was when which like when you think about it, it shouldn't really make you laugh, but when Dean is hammering the dog and then it looks like it's done, and then it all of a sudden starts moving again. That got me laughing. There's so many moments in this film that I honestly cannot wait to revisit this. So thank you guys so much for speaking to me about the film.
Thank you.
I I had such a fun time watching this movie, and I really loved your character because your character is very it's like the most like best friend character you could possibly be, and Sarah is a character that's like her purpose is she's trying to be a good friend, and that's what gets herself involved in this horror plot in the end. She's very unique and wild. What drew you to this character that and the story that she's placed into?
I mean, she means well.
That's
She
true.
tries. She tries to be the best friend. Everyone needs a Sarah in her life, you know, in their life, you know.
Yeah.
I think I aspire to be a friend. I have more boundaries than Sarah, but I do aspire to be the friend that will always have your back. And I think she cares so deeply about Josh and Rohan. You know, this is like sort of, you know, friendship is the family of choice. It's so she belongs to this family that she's chosen, and it's just like really fun to see somebody who feels like she doesn't belong kind of overcompensate and make herself like totally part of the family, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Then she's also always going to have your back, and she's going to help protect and fight a 400-year-old demon, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, everybody needs a friend like that. So, um, I am curious because your character is very is very outspoken and says some lines off screen. I was curious, like, is there any improvisation, or was it pretty much what was on the page is what went to screen?
I mean, Kent did such a great job with the script that she was pretty much written, you know. I mean, you understand Sarah the moment you read the script, and then
Yeah.
Craig, you know, just providing this awesome space for us to play. Like, so there was some improv, of course, because you're in this family with these great talents, you know, you're gonna play. So I did get to kind of bring kind of, you know, my version of Sarah, or how I thought the friend should be. So like, yeah, they're just definitely playing. You know, what ended up on screen is definitely most of Kent's writing. I mean, it's great. But I think we all had kind of like license to sort of add on, or, you know, have a little soundbite or there here. That's kind of just like the freedom of playing.
Yeah.
That was really fun. But yeah,
Yeah, it's the comedy in this is very it's I think on first watch I think it's really well paced, and I think it's one of those films kind of like a Napoleon Dynamite type thing where like mixed with horror, where you could watch it over and over, and the more you watch it the more fun you're gonna have with it with each rewatch. I think that's the future of this film, is that it's just gonna gain such a following because it's so well paced. And I
oh,
love the
Connor,
comedy.
that's so good to hear. I love movies that you can watch over and over and find like new things to
Yeah.
appreciate, right? Yeah, I think so much of it is because like everybody's so, I mean, these are great talents, you know, I grew up watching Lisa Kudrow and Parker Posey and Edie Falco, like best of the, you know, as a woman, it's like having, wow, like three great, amazing legends that you get to work with. So they're really good at what they do. And so even all the comedy bits, it's like based on total truth and reality of their characters, and it's because it's so based in truth, you're like, oh, I know her, or I know that lady, you know, I've met her,
Yeah.
or like I've dealt, you know, and Brian Cox, of course, like, you know him.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
don't, because you've never seen him like you see him in this movie. uh, but yeah, and Dean Norris and the boys, you know, Brandon and Nick, Dodani, I mean, they're just great. So they really bring like the truth of a character. It's never, even though it's such a kitschy, fun social satire, it's never like too off that you don't like believe in these people. And I think that's why it's like so easily relatable and then also terrifying.
Just kind of a fun one to end on. If you have an answer, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Your character, Sarah, if you were to put her into any kind of other horror movie or scenario, like when I was talking to Nick a little bit ago, I was saying, like, what could you see your character going on to do next? Like, I could see them going on like a honeymoon at the Evil Dead cabin, for instance. Like, what would you see like a spinoff with your character be in a
Well,
horror
only
movie?
because I've been watching White Lotus. I'm like, Sarah should go to White Lotus.
There you go.
She should have a vacay. Like the whole cast should have a vacay in Thailand. No, let's see. A fun movie for Sarah. Gosh. I mean, maybe like, yeah, the next Yorgos Lanthimos.
There you
Like,
go.
you know, like you just
Yep.
need a best friend who turns into a lobster.
Yeah, there you go. The lobster. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak to me about the film. I will definitely be catching it again and again once it hits Max.
Thank you, Connor.